There's that energy.
Hi,
Hello.
I'm Julian.
And I'm Tom.
We are Team Binge, and this is Stoppage time. Pow, 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 pow. We are here, as we mentioned in the last episode, to talk about a little movie called SuperBob, which stars one.
I was going to say Roy Kent, but Brett Goldstein.
There's our connection to Lasso. We did it. There won't be any more.
I think there's a couple. Connections we can make.
Well, reveal them to me later, because the only connection I had was that it takes place in London and it happens with Brett Goldstein. But no, this movie, if you have not seen it, we would encourage you to watch it. You can still listen to us, but right now it's free on Tubi. It is also on IMDb TV, which you can watch through Amazon Prime. That's how we initially watched it. But it's also, the full thing is on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
All of these have them with ads, but I didn't think the YouTube ads were all that bad. So, 2015 movie called SuperBob. We watched it because it has one Roy Kent, Brett Goldstein in it. It was written and directed with Brett Goldstein by his friend, John... I'm going to say Drever?
Yes, not John Denver, as I initially thought.
You thought John Denver?
I thought it might have been a John
the
Denver.
Grave.
Yes.
Oh, man. Right before he went off to fly that plane.
Yeah.
They apparently have been friends since they were like 15. They started this as for like a short film competition, and then it eventually became a feature.
Did you watch the short?
I did not watch the short, no.
The short was like 3 minutes long.
Oh,
like
really?
You can find it on YouTube. Yeah, which hits a lot of the same beats. I think they literally use a handful of scenes from it.
Okay.
Or like, cut like the cut and paste from it. But yeah, it was pretty funny.
Sure. So, I got to be honest, from the top, I'll mention it. It's a charming movie. If you haven't seen it, go
Great.
watch it. It's fun. And it's free. So, we're going to run through the premise of it, hit some stuff we really liked, and... just generally be charming about a charming movie.
Yeah, I mean, going into this, we just saw, like, we're looking at movies to do, and we're like, okay, let's see what the cast of Ted Lasso did, and we see SuperBob, Roy Kent as a superhero, like, this is perfect, we have to do this. I think we both went into this having no preconceived notions, didn't watch trailers, we just said, the premise had us.
Yeah, I mean, neither of us had heard of it before.
Yeah.
So my assumption is, if I have not heard of it, it's probably not a very good movie.
It's
how
very
I live
British.
my life.
It's very British. I
It
think,
is
like
very
you mentioned,
British.
like some of the humor, like a lot of it kind of reminded me of like the British version of The Office.
Very
'Cause
dry.
It's filmed like a mockumentary kind of thing too. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I had loads of laughs with it. And think I'm wondering if I would have had the same affinity for it had I not had already met Brett Goldstein as an actor or Roy Kent as a character.
I think I had the same thought, but since I watched it twice, I enjoyed it the second time just as much as the first, and I didn't spend the whole time being like, that's Roy Kent, that's Roy Kent, that's Roy Kent being goofy. But definitely like a dry British sense of humor, and I went into it because I had seen the trailer while we did the Lasso podcast. I think I'd mentioned I watched the trailer for this.
Okay.
The trailer makes it look like an epic, like, Marvel movie. Because it's a lot of the, like, special effects stuff and him being a superhero. But to your point, very much more like a mockumentary, like, dry, subdued. It reminded me a bit of Stranger Than Fiction, which I have a weird affinity for. One of my favorite movies. I know that you watched it not too long ago. But... very, I don't know, like not a small story because he's a superhero, but it really focuses on like some small like
everyday
issues. People. Yeah.
I think the tagline is it's like being a superhero is easy. It's like dating is hard,
right.
or romance is difficult, or whatever. Yeah.
Sure. So, premise of the story, real simple. We've all heard it before. In '07, a meteorite hits. Your local postman, Robert Kenner, known as eventually as SuperBob, is hit by a meteorite, and then there's just all these clips of him like flying, which is funny. He goes through that building and you hear him curse.
It's like, shoot, sorry. Millions of dollars worth of damage.
Right, and it's cut in between like him becoming a superhero and then Catherine Tate, the actress who plays Teresa, talking about him like turning himself in and like the start of her work at the Ministry of Defense.
Not Ministry of Magic.
Not Ministry of Magic.
Nope.
I thought of that several times because anytime a British person starts the phrase Ministry of, I'm like, oh, we're in Harry Potter again. I don't think Catherine Tate should have been in the Harry Potter universe. I don't think she is.
It's odd. You just assume every British person. And like, sorry, I do.
Good point. No.
What's Dame Helen Mirren? Mm-hmm. She just did like the trivia contest for Harry Potter, and like to think that she was not in the Harry Potter series is just baffling.
She's just hosting the game show. We find out that he has laser eyes, which I thought were fun because I don't think that comes back at any other part in the movie.
Never.
But he like glances off screen and apparently burns someone. Just some funny, I don't know, some funny offbeat comedy that I really enjoyed.
Yeah. Learning how to fly. He like flies on the mat, and he's holding the baby. Like, baby's all right.
Baby's all right. Yeah, a lot of those shots were fun. And one thing, I'll hit this at the top and I'll talk about it while we're discussing the whole film, is like, some of the special effects are better than they have any right to be.
Right.
Like, I mean, it's 2015, so it's not like it was way back in the day, but for a small budget film that this, I'm sure, was, I wish I had the numbers. I don't think I do.
Them, no.
But, like, something that was born out of a short film, there's certain parts where you're like, oh, that looks pretty good. Like, it's not cheesy. It's not like a B movie.
Yeah, some like the green screen work that they kind of used were great. And like, him, I think he did one superhero landing, but most of the special effects were superhero takeoffs.
Yeah, and they all
he
look
would just
good.
Go down. Yeah, they look great. Just pan the camera up, watch him go, and you're good.
And I didn't catch this until the second watch, is that everything happens in the movie past this like preamble all in one day. And so you hit the beat. It's a full day. I don't think I realized that. I know they give you the timestamps, but I wasn't paying attention to it.
Yeah.
So this is 6 years later after he becomes SuperBob, and it's talking to Teresa, the head of the emergency response team at the Ministry of Defense, and she's kind of explaining why like they're doing the film essentially, because it's the mockumentary guy talking to Teresa, and like, I recognize Catherine Tate, and I know her from one thing. And like, I'm assuming you recognized her as well?
Same, Nellie from The Office.
Nellie from The Office.
And I'll be honest, not a huge fan of her character from The Office. I thought she was really good in this. Again, like kind of very dry, but I think her character just kind of put me off a little bit in The Office. But I do appreciate that, like, she makes mention that she was behind the mockumentary or like getting this documentary made.
Right.
And I appreciate like the guys asking her questions like, you can't use that.
You can't use that.
You can't say my name.
Classified.
Yeah.
Classified. Need to know. You're on a need to know basis. To your point about her being Nellie on The Office, I mean, it's surprising because the best part of The Office was those last seasons, you know,
Not true.
when they just brought in all those new characters.
And celebrities.
That's The Office that I really love, you know. Once Will Ferrell got there, I was like, oh yeah, this is it. But she was not one of my favorite either. She's got a something to her that I like. Her humor, I found her great in this movie, but in The Office it was just a little bit strange. But he's a British government tool.
Bobbis?
Yes.
Super Bobbis?
Yes,
Do they
Super
mention
Bobbis.
that? He's a tool?
Yeah, he's a tool. He's a tool for the government.
He's a British Swiss Army knife.
And they want him to know he's just a regular guy that can fly, and so that's why they're doing the film.
Yep.
And there was a lot of flashes of like just phrasing, and we'll talk about it, of like, I don't know, like right post 9/11, like certain like British and American relation stuff that I really enjoyed. I loved being reminded of it.
I think we could both agree they just nailed America in this.
Oh,
I mean,
goodness.
to a T. This
Yeah,
is
part of me actually regrets recommending this movie because of its outlook on America. But speaking of America, it all takes place in Peckham. Mm-hmm. Are you familiar with Peckham? Does Peckham have a soccer team, Tom?
Yeah, Beckham played in Peckham.
Really?
No, I totally made that up.
Man, well, you can make up any football fact other than what into touch means, and I would probably believe you. But I looked up Peckham. Peckham is like a part of South London.
How close is it to Richmond?
I don't know.
Okay.
But I do know that it's not known as a very nice neighborhood.
Very stabby.
Very
stabby.
Very stabby. That's a great line. So we meet Bob like for the mockumentary as he's opening the door, and I think he's arguing with Teresa over the phone.
Yes, about his gas company. He doesn't know which one he signed up for.
Which is a great through joke.
Yeah.
And he's in a robe. He's realizing that the filming is today, which he apparently was not planning for.
Nope.
And what's so funny is he keeps shutting the door and like opening the door. He's like, hey, like he does all these bad intros because he wants a good one. And what I thought is such a funny joke is he's in a robe for most of them.
Yeah.
And then the one he like likes, he actually went back and changed into that Bahamas shirt that he wears through the majority of like that was his choice. He's no, a robe doesn't look good, but this Bahamas shirt is really going to do it.
Well, we find out later he's not much of a snazzy dresser. He needs assistance. So this is what he chose.
That's true.
But I feel like right when I saw Roy, like the first thing I saw is obviously those power eyebrows.
Oh, sure.
But then he's also got some power sideburns in this movie that kind of go down rather far and kind of come to a very aggressive point.
I don't know, 2015, weren't we all rocking sideburns? Wasn't that the year of the sideburns?
I don't recall
Elvis
that.
Elvis had a big comeback, and we were all rocking sideburns.
All right, that's fair.
And Bahamas t-shirts. And who is Doris? Doris shows up, one of the other main character in this movie. Speaking of Harry Potter universe.
There it is. Natalia, is it Tena?
Yeah, we'll go with Tena.
Natalia Tena. So she's from, most people probably recognize her from Harry Potter. She played Tonks. When I associate her when I saw her, my mind went to Game of Thrones, where she played Osha, who kind of helped like Bran and Rickon do all their stuff. But I will not spoil Game of Thrones. I'll be respectful.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's what we're doing on the next.
But she totally dies in Harry Potter.
We're
Wait, does she? I don't know.
Oh no,
I don't even know.
I don't remember, but I really enjoyed her as Tonks. I really liked her in this movie.
She was fantastic.
She
in
was
this movie.
great.
Yeah.
And did you do any research? So like, she's a British actress. Did you do any research? Because in this, she's playing Colombian.
Oh no, I don't know what's her nationality.
So no. She's British, but apparently she has family from Colombia. Okay. So she like picked up or like used the accent, used some of those mannerisms. I read some stuff that the director John Drever spoke about her, and it was very interesting for her to like slip into that accent. And it was, I don't know, I thought she was incredibly charming.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%.
I can see why Javier and Carl and Brian and Bob all fell for her.
Yep.
So then we start talking about, well, we go into the interview. It's being SuperBob. And the nice thing about this film is it's cut into like sections. So you get the like...
Yeah. They put like a card almost in front of your screen, yeah.
And so it's pretty easy to follow where we're at in the day if you're paying attention to that sort of thing.
I mean, it says the time, literally.
That's true. I was not paying attention the first go-around, truly. I wasn't until the second one I was like, oh, this all takes part in one day. Yep. It's a big day. And it's essentially John, the mockumentary, just kind of asking SuperBob about being Bob. And like he was a civil servant before this. He won't use the term superhero, which I think is so funny because like when did Marvel hit it big? What year would have like the Marvel movies been? They would have already been out in 15, right?
Oh,
we'd be heavy in it.
Yeah, heavy in it. We probably don't have like Infinity War or Endgame, but we are deep.
When is Iron Man? Is that like 10?
No, Iron Man was like early 2000s, I think.
Really?
Yeah, I mean they did 23 movies, and let's say they make 3 movies a year, so maybe.
How is this not in the Marvel universe, Tom?
My
question to you. My question, the audience question to you, Tom, is why is this not in the Marvel universe? I'll give you the floor.
I think this is part of Dark Horse Comics. This is a offshoot of DC.
Such a nerd.
Yeah, no, I don't know. This is clearly an ode to comics.
We don't use the word superhero. He's like, you could use the word, but we don't use the word. And then he starts. It's a great moment. He goes into this, and this is such like a government. It's also a shot at government. He's got to fill out all these forms. He's like, oh, an emergency happens here. I've got to get this form. It's the no-fly zone form.
And the way they cut to, like, the people he saved and have had to fill out the forms, and they just have terrible opinions of him because, like, yeah, he saved me, but, I mean, I had to fill out this form. I think one guy was like, out of 10, what would you rate your experience with Bob? I don't know, 6? I mean, I lived. I didn't die.
Yeah, it was great. And the rescue lady, she's, like, so disappointed because she's like, I thought he was fit, but then I met him, bit of a dullard. Which
we need to use dullard more.
Yeah, British insults are great.
Yeah.
We need to use them more. Does SuperBob have a girlfriend?
Oh, his response is so great.
This is what every reporter should ask everyone anytime they sit down with anyone.
He just gets like this big old smile. He gets very uncomfortable about it and then like refers to himself in the third person like, no, SuperBob doesn't have a girlfriend. It's great.
We should point out like, so our experience with Brett Goldstein is he's Roy Kent.
100%.
Like, so Roy Kent is angry all the time. Like, he doesn't care what other people think.
Yep, very
right?
assertive.
He's
yes.
very assertive. He's very confident. And I mean, did I say angry? Because angry was how
That's one of the adjectives,
yeah.
yep.
And so to watch him play Bob Kenner as this kind of like, even though he's a superhero, he's not assertive.
No.
He's like a pushover. He's awkward. People just kind of, take advantage of him. They don't think he's virile. I don't know. It's fun to watch him do this, and he does it really well. Like,
I remember
I lost Roy Kent pretty quickly just to see him in this part.
I remember we talked about, like, when we started the Ted Lasso pod, about him coming in because he wrote the part of Roy Kent, and he's like, I can do this. Like, I feel like I'm capable of doing that. And we didn't really know his acting pedigree or what he had done before. So to see him do that and now do this, like, clearly the guy's got some range.
Right.
And I mean, he won an Emmy for his portrayal of Roy Kent in Ted Lasso, and he probably won some Cannes film festivals or something like this for this. I'm not sure.
I don't think this movie won any awards.
This wasn't in Cannes?
No, but I don't know. I'm just surprised. I'm sure there's a lot of small British films I've never heard of or seen, but because this is in the Lasso orbit, we ran across it, and I'm grateful for it.
Yeah.
We then focus on Peckham, and it's like him walking on the street, and he's like, hey, this is where I'm from, this is where I live, this place is great, everyone's great.
They named this place after me, Super Pizza.
Super Pizza.
That was in the short, the Super Pizza.
Oh, was it?
Same joke, yeah.
Okay, so is the joke that it's just called Super Pizza, it has nothing to do with him?
100%.
All right, I got the joke right about now. And then someone comes by, and they, like, shout at him on a bicycle.
Yeah.
And he's like, everyone's really nice, and then he gets shouted at by the bicycle person. And he's like, except for that guy, he's not a fan, and that's almost definitely not his bike. So he stole.
That's a petty crime. SuperBob doesn't have time for that stuff, man.
Right. And this is where he says the best line about Peckham, which you said earlier, which is that it's a little bit stabby.
It's a little bit stabby.
Everyone wants to describe their hometown as stabby.
Well, I mean, it is London, right? They don't have guns, so they got to stab people.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. Another reason why we should all have guns. It's easier to stab people with bullets.
As opposed to, like they say, Phoenix. It's a little bit shooty.
It's a little bit shooty. Anyway, so Peckham is like the director. I read an interview with him where he talks about how it is where, like, he spent the most time growing up. Mm-hmm. So he literally said in the interview, he's like, this is my love letter to Peckham.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, cool love letter.
Yeah.
It caused me to look up what Peckham was and where they're at, and the fact that they don't have a football team, but that's fine.
They don't have a football team? After we talked about, like, every 18 divisions worth of soccer in England, and they don't have a football team?
People can add at us if Peckham has a football team, and I'm not sure about it.
I'm sure they do. It's probably a youth football team.
Then we roll into the section called Hobbies, which, like, how they came up with this, which is great. He was a part of what, Tom?
He's part of a choir.
A gospel choir.
Like a gospel choir, yep.
Which is so great. So he's practicing, he's singing with them. He hits that note.
Oh, at the very end, it breaks the glass.
He hits the glass.
And the way they cut out, like, he's outside, and he's talking about, like, oh, yeah, they had to end practice early, and then he hears them singing in the background, and he's, like, kind of upset. But, I mean, he did break their glass.
Yeah. He's like, oh, it was so good, they said we could go home early, yeah. And then realizes they're just in the background singing.
But I love how you could just so easily pick out his voice as they're all singing, because they're all, like, harmonizing, and he's just this fish out of water. It's great.
At the end of it, he goes for it. My wife's like, that's quite a note he's hitting. Then we find him building something. He's just gluing madness onto this. And this was a great joke. Once again, I don't know where they came up with this, but he's building a house of leaves.
Mm-hmm. Did you know they were leaves at that point?
I did not until he kind of explains what it's for later.
I didn't even get this until, like, he opened the box for June later on.
Right.
Like, when they're on their date. Like, I had no idea these were leaves.
I knew they were leaves. I did not know what he was building.
Okay.
I thought he was, like... I just thought he was sticking leaves on something. I had no... Maybe it was a birdhouse. I have no idea. But then his mom calls, and... For people with mothers, whose mothers call them to talk about things like This Is Us, or I don't know. I work a job. I will get calls in the middle of the workday from my mother. I love my mother to death. But it's like, I have a job. Like, And it will be about the most mundane thing. Like, hey, can this not wait until after 5 p.m. where, I'm not working?
Right.
But so great. She's like, I don't have a son. If I had a son, he would visit me. And then Bob turns to the camera and he's like, I'm not saying she's faking it, but it is a very convenient disease. She's like, oh, I heard that, Bob. And he's like, oh, now you remember my name. Just a great, back and forth with his mother, who apparently has, I would assume, Alzheimer's, which is not necessarily a laughing matter, but funny in the way that they do it.
They present it, it's kind of funny.
We find out that Bob has what? For someone who's invincible, he has a what?
He's got a security guy. And it's a union thing.
And I think his name is Larry?
No, I think you have it written down in the outline somewhere.
Okay, we'll find it.
We'll get to it. But I do appreciate it. He's like, but you're invincible. Yeah, it's a union thing.
It's a union thing. And the guy's bit is he's coming in with, jars to open.
I feel like it was a jar of honey.
Jelly?
I think it was honey.
Because he licks the lid. Or
yes.
He sticks his tongue in the container.
I think he does.
Yeah.
I would guess, jelly, honey, something like that. But did not seem necessarily to strain Bob too much, nor did it strain Doris at the end of the movie when she opens.
I'm gonna ask you a question, Tom, and there's only 2 correct answers.
Okay.
There are 2 food items in your life that as soon as you remove the lid, you're allowed to shove your tongue into said container. Not lick the lid, but said container. There are 2 of them. I am going to give you the floor. I will even kind of stall for you because I can feel your... Think about it. Think about your childhood. Think about something you might have in your lunchbox as a child. There are 2 things. I think they're both made by the same company. And I'm going to turn to you right now, and I know you're going to get both of these right. I have so much faith in you. Much like the choir at the church that Bob Kenner goes to. And the 2 things are, Tom?
A snack pack.
Okay, so the snack pack pudding. Okay.
And then Go-Gurt or yogurt?
No. The Jello. The Jello cup.
Oh.
You would do that with a Jello cup.
Why can't you do it with yogurt?
Because,
how is yogurt different
because
than...
that's not one of the right answers. Go-Gurt you squeeze out of a tube, dude. Come on. You're better than this. All right, Tom got 1 of 2. So in the third part of trivia, if you're keeping score between Tom and I, he won the first 2. I just won that one. And he sucks. All right.
Erroneous.
They then go, and they're talking about, once again, his life as a superhero, and he points out, why it's lonely. It's essentially lonely being the lone superhero in the world. He doesn't have the Avengers or the Revengers or whatever, the Leverage guys, that gang of people on that USA show. And he's like, he just wants someone to shine his shoes with.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Which I thought was an interesting phrase.
We know he's very good at tying shoes.
He's good at tying shoes because with Keely, he is very attentive in tying her shoes.
Correct.
So I wondered if this was a connection between Roy Kent and Bob Kenner, and obviously
it's got to be
something that we made up on our own that they knew about. But that's where my mind went when he's like, oh, I want someone to shine my shoes with. I was like, tie his shoes with Keely.
Did you find shine the shoes an interesting phrase? Do people shine their shoes that often? Is that still a thing nowadays?
Tom, I can tell you right now that I have a tin container of, it's a certain kind of oil that you rub on leather footwear.
Yeah.
But I have never gotten my shoes shined at an airport or anything like that.
Nor have I.
I have taken shoe polish to my dress shoes for I don't know, work, church, my 3rd wedding, all of those things. Don't tell my first wife.
I used to shine my boots. We talked about last time, having retreats with my soccer coach or whatever, and our soccer team in his cabin. One of the things he made us do when we went to that cabin trip is we all had to buy I don't know, the 2 different types of the Vaseline type stuff and the darker kind of stuff. And then you had to bring...
I'm sorry, so your coach invited you to a cabin in the woods and was like, hey boys, bring Vaseline?
Shoe Vaseline. So it was okay.
Sure, that's different.
But he
that's
taught
what he
us...
told the parents?
He taught us all how to shine our shoes because we had very expensive cleats. So he's like, hey, you got to take care of these cleats. You got to shine them. So we were shining our soccer boots.
Tom, did he have... Listen, and and we can cut all this out here if we're about to discover some painful memories. But did he videotape you guys all Vaselining each other's shoes?
I don't think so, but I mean, that could be. I've been fooled before.
Is this guy currently like out, like living, or is he like doing time in prison?
No, this guy is he's a youth coach for a local. Actually.
Oh, okay. I'm sure he's a wonderful man.
I don't think he still is, but I know he did.
Okay, well, yeah. We find out, how long's it been since Bob is out of date?
It's been 6 years. So apparently...
Did you catch the 6 years and then in the background, Doris laughs like I do when something hits me hard? Just a big guffaw.
So are we to assume that he was like a big ladies' man, and then he got hit by a meteorite, and then he hasn't dated for 6 years because he's been so busy? Because it's 6 years later, right?
Right. I didn't make this connection. That's a really good point. I did not assume that he was a big ladies' man. What I assumed is like that's just the last time he had time to focus on it.
Are we to assume too that he has a day off, a single day?
Tuesdays.
Sounds okay.
Like
Do they say that? Okay.
off.
This is okay. So yeah, I guess he just doesn't have time for love, man.
Everyone should make time for love. Everyone should make love time. Wait, I don't think that's...
You said that right.
That's what my coach used to say. All right. Then we find ourselves meeting the wonderful June.
Lovely, lovely June. Yes, the librarian.
At 10:06 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
He tells us that June is the most beautiful girl in Peckham. And I don't know if this is... I think he's like talking about her, and he's talking about how they met and like they're meet cute. And she asks him, have you ever read The House of Leaves? And I wanted to dive into this about you because obviously it comes into play later. Do you know this book?
I had never heard of this book before.
Okay, so we're going to go real granular here.
Go.
House of Leaves is a book that I don't think I ever finished, but I definitely started.
Okay.
And I feel like your older brother or Ben was really into this book and kind of brought it into the fold of our like weird friend group.
I feel like that might be a Ben book.
Okay.
Ben, one of our, my older brother's good friends I lived with for a while.
Sure. Everyone wanted to know
that. They need to know.
Thank you. Ben's a good guy, great guy, firefighter.
Yeah, just had a second kid. Congratulations.
Really
again,
good
Ben.
dude. No one's going to find him and write him
I know Ben's
this.
a big listener to this podcast, so.
Well, it is a book that, for those of you that have read it, I'm going to explain in this way. It's like a book on top of a book on top of a book on top of a book. It's like
a book inception.
It's like written from like a study about a family that lives into a house, and they find out like the house is much bigger on the inside than it looks from the outside. Like they go into rooms.
So like a Harry Potter tent.
Yeah, like a Harry Potter tent. Exactly. Thank you. I think I can relate most of this to. But then it has like footnotes about someone doing like studies on the house or the book itself, and there's like another narrator that comes into play. It is a crazy book that someone wrote, and people were like, "Oh, this is really good." And I think it's maybe just nonsense.
It's garbage.
That we were tricked into.
Is it?
I won't say garbage.
Yeah,
I found it like
unique.
Interesting. It's creepy too.
He said like it's a spiral book, like you read it and like to turn the page. Is that just like a section of it?
No,
or?
like it is very much like that, where it's not like pages look like pages. It's like some things are written around the borders, and then there's like notations, and it's very complicated. And I think it was not something where the author felt like he had to explain any of it. Mm-hmm. He's just like, oh, if I put madness on the page, people will think this is genius.
Right.
Much like most people. Like Da Vinci or Van Gogh or Martin Luther or any of those people. Tesla, sure.
Sure. But so did you finish said book?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely not. I don't think anyone's finished it. If someone tells you they finished House of Leaves and it's their favorite book, they're a liar.
Well, we find out later Bob was just misread.
Misread, yeah.
Or misheard, excuse me.
But June is played by Laura Haddock. Mm-hmm. Did you know her from anything? I'll say this as you're thinking about this. When she came on the big screen, by that I mean we've got one of those like 55-inch tube televisions.
Yep.
where you have to hit the buttons on the screen to change the channel.
Oh, wow.
But you have to push them in a certain way.
Good for you.
My wife was like, "Oh, she's really pretty."
She is very pretty. She's a very attractive
pretty.
woman.
All right, we got Tom on record saying it. We got him.
She looked incredibly familiar. Like I might have seen her from some things. And I think I looked up her IMDb page, and I think like the biggest probably blockbuster movie she's been in is Guardians of the Galaxy. She played Meredith Quill,
Peter
Quill's mom.
Who's played by Chris Pratt.
Yes,
Chris Pratt's mom.
Chris
Guardians
Pratt's
of the
mom.
Galaxy.
But I think she's been in a handful of other things that I feel like I recognized her more so from that, because I think even in Guardians, she might have been in like flashback sequences and stuff.
Okay.
But in the first Guardians, like she was just like she was very sickly and she was like in bed, and I don't think she had like any hair, so like very different role. So that's why I'm like I didn't recognize her from that.
Listen, I've never watched a Marvel movie, but
Call him BS.
I'm starting to get the sense that SuperBob is part of the Marvel Universe.
Sure.
And it would make sense. I'm going to assume Peter Quill, did you say his name was?
Yes.
Probably doesn't know who his father is. So, walk this path with me, my friend.
Yes, begin.
Walk this path through the House of Leaves to where I'm getting to.
I'm going to jog.
Which is, we're walking because we're holding hands. You can't jog and walk with me at the same time when we're holding hands.
Okay.
Here's the deal.
Can we skip?
I think
skip.
SuperBob
Okay.
and June wind up together after this movie. Like they reconcile.
Okay.
And their son's name is Peter. And they name him Peter Quill because she works in a library and books are written with quills.
Wow.
This is why this movie should be part of the Marvel Universe.
I mean, it's
Agree or disagree, Tom, right now?
Disagree.
Oh, man, you're the worst. Way to yes and me, friend.
But I do appreciate your Quill references. That's fantastic.
I didn't realize this was part of the Marvel Universe until this moment. Mm-hmm. He's then outside the parcel office. The parcel office is a much better name than the post office. I just want to... I like that better.
I'll agree with that one.
And he's like talking to the camera, and this woman in line's like, "Hey, Bob, come here." He's like, "I don't know this woman." Which I don't think he does.
No, people just know him.
Yeah, she's like, "Hey, do this for me. You're a superhero. Stand in line for me." And he's such a... This is like establishing he's a pushover.
Yeah.
And like, I would argue just a super nice guy.
Yeah.
Which, if someone gets struck by a meteor and becomes a superhero, you want them to be a super nice guy. Because I would think that, and this is probably expanded in a lot of other shows, is like if you're given superhero abilities, it probably just expands on who you are already.
Yep.
So if you're an evil person and you get superheroes, I don't think, or superpowers, I don't think you become good. They should make like an Amazon show about that type of stuff. Anyways, he's a pushover. He stands in line. We find out that June asked him on the date, right? Or does he ask June?
No, June asks him.
Okay.
Yeah,
June
it kind of goes
asked
back
him,
and forth. June eventually says that I asked him out. Yep.
and he gives this charming look to camera where he goes, "There's no accounting for taste." And I was like, I don't really know what that means, but I really appreciate it.
Is he saying that June asked him out, so like there's no accounting for taste in him?
Yeah, I think it is a self-deprecating joke about like that she would go for him. And then he's got to go buy clothes, and like we find out that Teresa offered to take him, but he doesn't want to go with Teresa. He wants to go with Doris. Which I think their relationship, and we'll talk about this in a little while, has she known him for 6 years since he became, like shortly after he became SuperBob?
She does a little confessional with the documentary crew, and I think she does mention that. Yeah, I think it is 6 years. Because I don't think he would have had, like, a cleaner if we was, like, a civil servant kind of a thing. So say, like, that's part of maybe what even Teresa, like, got him. They got him a cleaner. They got him a security guard.
Okay. Well, I have trouble thinking about these two people being, like, that close over 6 years and it taking 6 years for it to come to fruition.
Well, it's like a friendship. Like, they just, like, have a budding friendship. They don't necessarily... Like, Bob, like, just kind of discovers that he, like, has feelings for her and never really thought about it until he had his first date with June. So he's kind of, like, in the romantic, I don't know, like, mindset or whatever, and then realized, like, that, hey, I've had this person right in front of me.
Okay, but she's Tonks.
She is Tonks. She's gorgeous.
Tonks.
Yes, she's a gorgeous woman that you figure he might have tried.
Yeah, he might have given it a passing thought.
Yeah.
But I guess we do find out he's just a little bit slow on the uptake sometimes. then we're shopping, and I think this is where he's like popping out and things, and they tell him he looks desperate and insane.
Yeah.
And then we make a comment about Brett Goldstein's most prominent features.
Yeah, he's got terrorist eyebrows.
Terrorist eyebrows.
Gets confirmed from the bodyguard. Oh yeah, you'd absolutely have terrorist eyebrows.
Poor Brett Goldstein.
Listen, he's owning his eyebrows. He's not afraid of them.
And they're walking on the street, and this woman's like, "Hey, are you enjoying your day off, Bob?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like nice to her, and she's like, "You lazy piece of poop." Oh, that's so
people
great.
are mean, man.
Yeah,
like,
people are mean.
That's just mean.
What's
Give
he
the guy a
supposed
day.
to be doing?
Yeah. I do appreciate, though, how they eventually get to them sitting on a bench, and I think it sits on this scene for like 2 minutes straight. But they're just hanging out eating Lunchables, and it took me a second to like, what are they eating? Like,
oh really?
Yeah, like I'm like, what is going on? Like, what are they? But then once he starts like putting it together, and then it gets a little bit closer, and you actually see it's like probably ham, cheese, and cracker.
And
Classic.
you see a nice moment. He like puts something on her Lunchable for her, like she's missing the cheese, and my heart melted a little for the two of them.
When's the last time you ate a Lunchable?
Like from a package, I don't know. We do like meat and cheese trays, which a cracker might be slipped in there, but an actual Lunchable. Here's the deal: my family was never one to buy those. Like I was the kid with a brown paper bag and like a sandwich that I probably made, and everyone else had like Squeeze-Its and Lunchables, and I was like, one day
you got an apple and a PBJ.
That's why I think I'm very much for like my children. They should just get those things because I didn't have them. So no, I was never. A Lunchable would never have been anything we had in our house.
I felt like I had them when I was a kid, and then like when I was in college and had to start like grocery shopping for myself, and I was like going through the aisles, I'm like, I'm gonna get a Lunchable. So I got like 3 or 4 Lunchables. They're terrible.
Yeah.
They're terrible when you go back and try to have them as an adult.
Yeah. Also, you look at it and you're like, wait, I can buy a box of Ritz crackers and a pound of deli meat and make 12 Lunchables.
That are 1,000 times better.
Yeah. For the cost of what a Lunchable is. No offense to Lunchables. If you want to sponsor us, by all means, send us Lunchables. But I have this crazy theory that non-Lunchable people and Lunchable people marry each other. Mm-hmm. And that's just to say, in my own life,
so you think your wife is a Lunchable person?
My wife is most certainly the kid that got Lunchables, and I'm the brown paper bag kid. That's exactly how it works out.
I'm going to go home and just ask my wife, hey, did you have Lunchables when you were a kid? And if she did, divorce.
Oh no, she's going to listen to this.
I love you, honey.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Upgrade your business with Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning fewer carts going abandoned and more sales going cha-ching. So if you're into growing your business, get a commerce platform that's ready to sell wherever your customers are. Visit Shopify.com to upgrade your selling today.
We find out that I think this is where she's talking to the camera, and we find out that she works at the care home of Bob's mom, and then Bob's mom's like, hey, I have a son that needs taken care of. So he like helps out with the cleaning as well, and that's how I got stuck with Bob, I think is her exact
Well, she even
term.
mentions like, oh, this guy can't tie shoelaces, and that's BS. We know this guy can tie shoelaces.
Roy
like the best
Kent,
of them.
Bob Goldstein and SuperBob can tie shoelaces.
Brett
Goldstein. Her whole point was she's doing this job in order to raise money to open a nursery in Colombia, which is where she's from. This is them walking across the street, and she's like asking Bob, what are you going to do for your date? Which is kind of fun to think about, like if you're a superhero, so be ready for this question after I get done talking about this. But Bob's idea is first date, he's going to fly her to this super cool monastery in Tibet. They're going to sit there and like look over, and Doris is like, are you crazy? Do you want to look crazy? And I think this is where Bob goes, I most certainly don't want to look crazy.
Very sincerely.
Yeah, very sincerely. I do not want that to happen. And she's like, take her to the local restaurant in Peckham, ask her personal stuff. And she's like, don't ask who supplies her gas. And the way the way Bob like reacts to it, it's almost like I think he was going to ask her about the gas company.
Well, they do end up talking about gas later on. Just different gas.
Right. This gets to a theory of mine, so we'll go into that.
Pin it.
I will pin it, Tom. Then we find ourselves in the clothing store where he comes out in some great outfits.
He does. And the gas are like, is this good? She's like, no.
No, I hate that. Which is, did you think of all the clothing trying on that happens in Lasso?
That's right. I forgot
There's
about
a bunch of like...
Yeah.
Apparently in British shows, they really like a good
fashion joke.
Which I guess is that's like a rom-com staple, like, right? You go to the store to like...
Pretty Woman kind of thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Let's change this person by changing their clothes.
Or just take off their glasses. This very attractive person just takes off their glasses, and guess what? They're still attractive.
Tom, you wear glasses and you're super attractive, one way or the other. And soon you won't be wearing glasses, Tom.
Get my eyeballs lasered on Thursday.
That's a little bit about you.
Yep.
All right, and in the clothing shop, he gets a call from Teresa. Mm-hmm. She's telling him it's an emergency, and Doris is like, no, like, what about the date? Like, hang up. No. Yeah. He's like, I can't say no to the Ministry of Defense. I don't know if you realize this. On more than one of the time cards, defense is spelled with a C at the end, which I thought was strange. There's one in the very beginning where defense is not an S at the end, it's a C at the end, which made me think if they spell it differently.
So it's like there. Favorite or color, where they add a U, like weirdos.
He spelled color wrong. No, what did he say?
Yeah,
he spelled favorite wrong? He spelled favorite wrong. So good. You got that joke? I did not. This is when one of the funnier moments of the show.
Probably one of my favorite lines, yeah.
And he incidentally calls her a lady of the night.
Yep.
He makes this comment because she's saying like, oh, what? A woman can't have, be with multiple people. And he's like, no, not every woman, just you. You are a lady of the night. And he's like, I can't believe that's where that sentence ended. I thought there would be other words that would make it better. And he's
just trying to take all of it back immediately after he says it. He realizes, uh-oh. This reminded me very much of like a Michael Scott kind of line out of The Office, yeah.
Definitely. I do appreciate it. He turns to the shopkeeper and he's like, can I get some help? Like, what's the shopkeeper going to do for you? The guy's like, hey, cut your losses, man. And this is then where she pulls up a blank sheet of paper, which I didn't really know where this was going. Mm-hmm. I did appreciate that they brought it back a little bit later. But this was the go F yourself form.
It was.
That he had to sign.
It's like, there's nothing on it.
Full name.
Oh, no, it says it. It's magic. It's psychic paper.
Yeah. Then this gets us to the Ministry of Defense meeting. It's an emergency. They need a handshake, a hug, and for him to hold the baby.
This is the first time we see him like in the full uniform, I think. Like maybe in the
in
first
the intro,
cutscenes.
You see him in the black biker jacket with cape. Yes.
Yeah, I appreciate like he's got the little Union Jack right there, got the flag, and then right underneath it, it's got R. Kenner. Which did that remind you of anything?
No.
It 100% took me into Ghostbusters, like the Ghostbuster uniforms where they all had like stands or all their names right on their uniforms. It 100% was like, oh, this is a Ghostbusters uniform.
She explains to him that he needs to shake hands with the USA so they don't think he's dangerous. USA. We find out that the US tried to poach him. By the way, if the US tried to poach him, we would have gotten him.
We got him. We get our man.
Gotten him. He'd be living in Iowa on a farm because that's central. Anyways, then the USA we find out is doing a smear campaign because they want to get him back. Mm-hmm. I think this is also the point where we finally meet the American politician who is doing like a weird George W. impression. Is that not what you got from him?
I don't know if I got George W. I think it's just like any right-wing kind of lunatic politician that's just...
They're not all lunatics, Tom, but I see where you're getting at.
Well...
the actor he made me think most of... Did it hit you as someone like... He looked like someone?
Not necessarily. I feel like he was just a generic... white old politician.
He looked like to me, and I am completely blanking on the name, so I'll insert it in robot voice. Dennis Quaid. That worked. Anyways, the actor reminded me of like a Dennis Quaid, like a poor man's Dennis Quaid. Anyways, they really like went after America with this politician. I felt like he's like, what kind of superhero smashes up a school? It was like very much a don't look at the good, let's just look at the bad that he did. And then it turns into like a marketing meeting where they're going through photo op options.
Those were so great.
Wait, is op options in that term? Did I just learn something?
Yeah, photo options.
Photo operation. Is it photo operation? What's a photo? What's op in photo op?
I mean, now that
I
have no idea.
Write us.
I would guess.
What's our email address, Tom?
teambingepodcast@gmail.com.
We appreciate your emails. Every one of them have been a complete joy. Mm-hmm. They're not vultures. They're bald eagles.
Yeah, I was confused at first, but no, they're bald eagles.
Guy doesn't know what a bald eagle is.
All those guys, like, little comments are like great. Like these mountains are snow capped. They don't have to be. We could change that.
Right.
We'll put some buzzers on the ground or meat on the ground to get them circling.
I'm realizing why this movie didn't do well in America. A lot of shots. Fired. Bob wants to cancel so he doesn't miss his date. Mm-hmm. He's like, Doris says I should say no more. Teresa goes after Doris. And then the real culmination of this scene is the picture of what, Tom?
Of the guy handing him a hot dog and him like on me getting the hot dog.
Like, I understand from like a comedic value, but there's no way that picture ever makes it into that boardroom. Like, everyone else is oblivious, but SuperBob.
I appreciate
what's happening.
SuperBob's season is like, all right, I'll go with the handshake. Fine, immediately.
And then I think he's on the balcony. He cancels on June. He's on the phone. Mm-hmm. And then he decides to grow a backbone and be a superhero. And he's like, no, I'm not. And this is such a very funny thing that I'm sure other shows and other movies have pointed this out. And I think we've talked about it as we discussed Lasso, is how no one ever says goodbye on a phone call. Yeah. It's like a show doesn't have time for one more word, so they always hang up on people in shows.
Yep.
And he hangs up on June. And they do this like, no, sorry, June, I didn't hang up on you. I was trying to be dramatic. I was gonna
like he gets the call back right from her, and she's like, "What? I'm not mad at you. I'm not mad at you. Just to say goodbye. I was being dramatic." So
and it's great because you don't hear her. He's like acting, just great phone acting. And then he goes in and he's like, I'm not doing it. And there's this moment where he like thrusts his fist in the air.
Effing no. Boom. Fist in the air.
Fist in the air. And then he comes back and Brett Goldstein apologizing for saying the F word to a group of people.
Didn't think we'd hear that from him, this guy.
So great. He's like, listen, in about 4 or 5 years, I'm going to be saying a lot of swear words on television.
Usually to small children.
At small children, so get used to it. Oh, it was great. And then he hangs up on Doris, and they do the whole bit again. I just thought that was a funny thing, because if you pay attention in movies or shows, they're just, I guess, I don't know, is it like a dramatic effect that they hit, like...
I don't know what it is. It's like you want to cut scene, so you hang up, and then you can cut scene immediately without having a goodbye.
I'm the type of person that says goodbye like 3 times on the phone because you want to be the last person to say it. And so it's like, hey, all right, have a good one. Yeah, goodbye. All right, goodbye. Like, you go back and forth. I can't hang up a call without saying 3 goodbyes. We're at 1 p.m., Tom.
1 p.m.
It's a lunch date.
We should be doing this like in real time. We should be doing these sections. This is 1 p.m. We should wait till 1 p.m. and do this section, and then do the next section at 2:19.
Sounds good to me. Let's wait. It's only several hours away. We see him sitting at the table all alone. My wife, just an audible.
Oh. I did not catch this because it's 1 p.m.
And then it flashes.
It says dinner date or date 1 p.m. And then it says like 1:40,
right?
Yeah, I totally missed it the first time.
My wife felt for him immediately, sitting at that table being stood up. I did too.
Did we ever find out? Why did she stand him up? Was it a miscommunication?
I thought it was, because Teresa's pulling the strings.
Yeah.
So I thought that was what it was about.
But like, doesn't Teresa want them to get together and be on a date, or she wants him to go to the date? At
she
the house?
didn't want the lunch date to happen because she wanted him to shake hands with
Oh,
everyone.
I got you. Okay.
Yeah.
So that was a vindictive. Hey, you're not going now.
This movie is like a dry British comedy, but also you got to really be paying attention to all those details, otherwise it doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm here for. Much like all those Marvel movies I've watched from the Marvel universe.
Yep.
It's 2:19. This is Doris shows up. She's like, "Why's your phone off?" He's like, "You told me to turn my phone off at dates." She's like, "Your mom fell. Come on." So then we find ourselves at the care home, and it's Bob and his mom having a cuppa.
Cup of tea.
A cuppa? They said cuppa.
A cuppa. But I appreciate how they're both sitting like on the side of the bed, and they drink the tea simultaneous.
Right. Javier, we meet Javier, I think, at this point, comes down the hallway. Every time, what I think is so funny is if you watch Javier just in the background, regardless of the age of the woman he's talking to, it's very, like, overly affectionate, we'll say. I don't know what better term.
You think he's sitting on the old ladies there?
Every one of them.
Wow.
Certainly the ones that have an inheritance to give. This is then when the mom is talking about her wanting him to find a woman. And she's like, "I'm gonna die sooner than you think." And this is not something to be laughed about, but has either of your parents ever brought up their own death as a like guilt trip?
Not necessarily as a guilt trip, but like, as they start getting like knees replaced and hips and shoulders and things like that.
Not gonna be here forever.
Yeah.
I have a parent, I'm not going to name which one, that often brings up her demise and uses it as leverage during conversations. And it's like, hey, I don't really want to think about that, so please stop bringing it up. But it is what it is.
They're important conversations. You got to have them. They're not pleasant.
No, she's not bringing up for an important reason. It's leverage in order to get me to like move boxes. Anyways. This is then when Bob is like, "I touch lots of women." And the other caretaker's in the hallway, and she's staring at him. And he's like, "Only when they ask."
Yes.
And she's like, "When do they ask?" They don't.
They don't.
Such a great...
I love that.
Once again, Brett Goldstein just does an incredible job.
And I love, again, like, I love the idea of somebody being in the background or just walking by, catching it, and then they insert themselves into the scene.
Right.
I love it. It's great.
Right. Then the mom starts taking a copious amount of pills. Because Bob won't find a woman. And then Bob just says, "Hey, Doris and I are together." And the mom is ecstatic.
Crazy happy.
Because she loves Doris.
Yep.
And I think this is where Bob convinces Doris, let's just pretend. This is a great justification. She won't remember anyways.
So let's do it.
So good. So good. And this finds us at Gladys and Ted's 60th anniversary. Was his name Ted?
It was Ted. Yep.
There we go. Another connection.
Oh, man.
Ted Lasso.
If only it was Michelle and Ted's 60th anniversary.
Michelle
different universe.
and Ted are not going to have
It's
a
a different
60th
universe.
anniversary. Oh, I wish they would. I wish they would. This is where Doris forces SuperBob to give a speech. And I got to be honest, I had a great time.
This speech is fantastic.
Great
Take us through
time. I'll hit some of the stuff. It's just like, he's clearly unprepared.
Yeah.
She's put him on the spot. And he's like, 60 years is a long time. You're the sort of couple that's going to die very soon after each other. Not from cancer or because you caught something, but because your heart...
And then he's kind of like, then he like, pop. There's like a popping noise. Like, literally puts his finger in the mouth. That was great.
In like a week, we don't want you to die. Well... If you're in pain, then go ahead.
Yeah, like, we'll warn you. Like,
oh,
be
so
sad.
good. Every bit of it was just awkward and great, and
great.
I loved it. And he gets to his point, which is, don't we want to be with someone that if they die, we don't want to go on?
Yeah. Julian, your thoughts?
My thoughts are, if I would die, then yes, I don't want my spouse to go on. But if my spouse dies... I'm probably going to take like a National Forest Service job and live in the woods.
Okay.
And yeah, that's what I thought about. That's where I'm at. Tom, your retort?
No.
No.
We're both going out in Blades of Glory. Parachutes, snowshoots.
Blades of Glory. So some sort of figure skating accident.
Yes.
Wonderful. We should have talked about this before, and I meant to hit it. But Tom, you're a superhero. You get your choice of taking someone out on a first date where you can fly and have laser eyes. What do you do with said person?
I mean, we have to go to a very fine dining restaurant, and
Sure.
I would go to a restaurant that's very popular, very good restaurant that everybody loves, but I'd go to the classy version of it.
Okay.
So we would fly to Vegas and go to the Vegas Taco Bell. It's really fancy. They've got these yard drinks that are really good as well.
Is it like up in the air? Do you have to fly to it, or is it ground level?
No, it's on the second. Well, there's 2 stories, so you can go to the second story. So we would do the second story to make it fancy.
Sure.
And then, of course, after that, we would fly to, I don't know, Paris, Eiffel Tower.
Okay,
That's probably
sure.
the answer you should give.
Sure. And you're a superhero, so you speak French.
I speak French. Well, does superhero allow you to speak languages?
I don't know. Can you tell us what you'd say to your date in French, Tom?
I would tell her I love her face.
Wonderful. All right. That's good. That's good.
And you?
Well, I know deep down, just as someone who is a huge, nature guy, that fear
You love him so much, you got to kill it.
and adrenaline are an incredible aphrodisiac.
Ooh.
So, what I would do, like most superheroes, I would take my date and I would rob a series of banks. And as the police are chasing us, I wouldn't fly away. I'd let them think they're going to catch us. And I'd take my date on a series of I don't know, we'd hop on a train. We'd be running and we're doing all these things. And we just rob bank after bank after bank,
Okay.
but never get caught.
Wow. Sounds like just a great escape. It's just a constant escape plan.
Sure.
Is
Then
she driving?
And then I'd
Or
go
you're
into
flying?
jail, and then I'd break out of jail.
Okay.
But they'd never catch me because I'm Prison Mike. Oh, anyways. Where were we? Oh, we're at the newsroom.
Mm-hmm.
And we have seen this anchor throughout the show. I don't know. Did you recognize the news anchor?
I recognize him right away from a show my wife watches. The guy's name is David Harwood.
Okay.
So TV anchor. He was on Supergirl. So
Okay.
apparently he only is in movies that start with super, or shows that start with super.
Sure.
But he plays the Martian Manhunter in that show.
Okay. Yeah, that is not where I knew him from. I knew him from
What else is he in?
the TV show that I'm pretty sure I wrote down, and for some reason right now I am blank. Homeland. He was in Homeland.
Oh, okay.
He was the head of CIA in Homeland. That's where I recognized him from. He
Gotcha.
was great in that. But I appreciate that the thing the senator is mad about is that he wouldn't shake his hand.
We'll check his hand. That's it.
Man, we Americans can get saucy about the smallest of things.
Saucy.
This gets us to the moment where we're dancing with Doris. We're still at the home care place.
They're having some back and forth. They're kind of talking
Yeah.
about what their first kiss, or not necessarily first kiss.
Well, they haven't
first
gotten to
asked her
that
out.
This
Oh,
is
they don't?
where she shows him the paper that he signed.
Oh, okay.
And he reads through that, and he's like, how come your English is so good on paper? Which is a great moment. And they're just dancing, and then they're spinning around, and then they float. And I thought the way the music was done, I thought the way it was shot, the lighting.
Yeah.
It was a super nice, relaxing, romantic.
I didn't think this was possible, but they both floated and fell in love.
Tom, this is why you're in radio. That type of whatever you just did there.
I gotta do a little deeper. Got that radio voice. Cool jazz.
June. Oh no. June then calls and the date is back on, and then they leave to go back to
Go to Bob's house.
Bob's house.
But I do appreciate when they're on the phone call. I think Bob emphasizes goodbye.
Oh yeah. That was great. We're back at why won't SuperBob shake hands? You don't have control over SuperBob. SuperBob hates America. I don't know. All of this stuff was all right.
I do appreciate Teresa's descriptions of America. She's like, plinkety plonkety country and western, football with your cagey head helmet hats, peanut butter and jelly. This is just great. Can I ask you, how would you describe America? 3 things. Describe America. Go.
Jackhammer, aggressive jackhammer. Freedom.
Freedom. Classic American. I asked for 3, he gives me 4.
I think I gave you 5, but I doubled on a couple of them. So I don't think they leave there because they're still at the home care place, and Doris asks Bob to like explain how they first met or how they
impressed each
got
other
together, because the other...
They kept cutting back and forth between the nursing home or whatever, the care home, and the news anchor.
That's right.
Whatever.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And so Doris, we find out that Doris really likes the strong, assertive, virile type. and Bob's like, well, I'm a superhero.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to, be arrogant or whatever. I'm a superhero.
She's like, how did you impress me? I'm a superhero. I never think of you like that, which is such a great line.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's Doris asked me out. And she's like, I didn't ask you out. You asked me out. And he goes into watching her. She's like, he always watches me eat bananas.
She eats bananas with the skin on. Of course I watch. It's weird.
It's so strange. So strange.
Now,
I wonder, is that a thing?
Are we to assume, like I'm pretty sure, apes do it? I think apes eat the whole thing. And I don't think it's necessarily bad.
Right.
But are we to assume she, bites it like it's a
banana?
a banana with the skin still on, and does she, spit the skin out?
No, I think the assumption here is that she eats the peel and all.
She eats the peel. Good for her.
It's like eating an orange with the peel. I don't think I'd do that. An apple with the peel, I'll do.
I don't think apples and peels.
No, thank you.
Well, yeah, we learned something.
Then the mom interjects, he always used to steal my knickers, which, thanks, Mom.
That was 4. That happened once.
And I do like how Doris, once again, she made him do the speech. She sets him up here. He says 4. He said the perfect words. 4 perfect words.
And he has to fumble and figure out what the 4 perfect words were.
He goes through some romantic comedies,
Yep.
You Had Me At. She's like, no, that's
You
from
Complete
the movie.
Me, I think.
Completely,
yes.
yeah.
But then finishes on, which I spoiled earlier, I love your face. And I like how he says it, and he's surprised, and his voice
nailed it.
That is 4 words. Yes,
Yeah.
I got it.
By the way, not a good one. Not one you should be proud of. I love your face. It's not a great.
Say it to my wife every night.
Oh, okay. All right. Maybe it does work. Then they apparently leave the care home, and they're walking down the street. I guess you hear in the background that stuff's happening. There's been a big crash.
Did she get a call? Does Teresa call her? Or call him?
I don't think. No, he doesn't get a
'cause
call
he's
because she doesn't
there.
want him to be there. And so this is another one of the times where he bends down and he shoots into the sky, and it looks pretty good.
Yep.
She keeps walking. And this is also intercut with the news things of I know exactly where he's at. He's on his day off. He's not doing anything. And then he shows up at the crash at 5:09, and he's helping people. Teresa shows up, and she's like, you can't be here. And this is the moment where he gets in the car. The woman is something sticking out of her chest.
Yeah.
I don't think she was going to make it. She dies in the car. And I won't name names, but the person I was with watching this laughed at the most inappropriate time. And I looked at said person, and the person was like, oh, I thought they were going to have her slump over and fall. And I thought it was going to be comedic.
Comedy bit?
Not comedy. Very serious, very sad. The music, the lighting, everything tells you this is the serious moment of the movie.
Well, yeah, the movie does tiptoe kind of the drama and comedy, so you wouldn't know if they were going to be. But I feel there's enough drama in this, with the relationship and the sincerity that Bob delivers and is trying to be a good person. That I took this as a very sincere moment, and it was heart wrenching to Bob was there to kind of comfort this woman as she passed.
Right. Yeah. Normal people would find this moment sad.
Okay.
I just want that on record.
Okay.
Not having a small guffaw, as they thought. But no, I thought this was an interesting moment. And it's his heart is to help people.
Yeah.
Which is what you want. And once again, big government getting in the way, trying to keep good people from doing good stuff. Just like our American senator on the television and the handshake. Anyways, and then he flies away from the crash site once again. I thought the effects were great. Mm-hmm. How long was the senator on the talk show? He was at that table with the guy from Homeland for so long. Typically they have a guest on for a 3-minute segment, and then they cut to commercial, and then...
Listen, it's not often that the British news gets such a powerhouse American senator.
The guy's like, well, I'm in England. I'll be on your news show for 6 hours. He's a guest anchor for the day, but he's also shouting.
It's probably an hour-long show, so he's showing in like the half-hour segment. We don't know how long Bob was at the nursing home or whatever, or the care home, excuse me.
He says something like, "You guys are sitting on the best, or one of the greatest discoveries in the world." He's like, "You've got a WMD." When he used WMD, I was like, "Oh man, this is really a throwback to like '03 America sucks." But I don't know.
We're good now.
We're much better now. Okay. Much better. The best. Anyways, then we're at Bob's house.
I do appreciate how we like enter Bob's house, or like the way we transition to the scene, because he's like on the stoop and he's like, you know, the music is playing like kind of Bill Lawrence style. He's like got the blood in his face, like he's clearly like dealing with the emotion of what just happened here. And then Doris comes in. He's like, "Yeah, I forgot my keys. Sorry, I couldn't get in."
Yeah,
a little levity. Yeah.
They go into his house and she's like taking care of him, and what's so funny is she's like talking about the most like mundane things. Yeah. She's like, an argument happened and I was supposed to do such and such, and she's spraying him down with household cleaner. And I thought to myself, is it because he's, I guess, impenetrable that you can wipe him down with bleach?
That's a fair point.
Is that what it is?
I didn't think about that at all.
You can spray his eyeballs with bleach and it's not going to affect him because he's SuperBob?
That's pretty awesome, actually.
I was like, was this just a weird movie thing? Or is this like a deep, they're like, listen, you wouldn't like just have him shower. You would spray him down with industrial cleaner because he can't be like damaged.
That's a good take. I thought she was just using like a Windex bottle to clean him, but I didn't think of that invulnerability bit. I like it.
Right. And then he gets real vulnerable and he's just like, today was tough.
Yeah.
And it's very nice, lovely moment because she sits with him and she's just there with him in silence. And, you know, at least one of his complaints is how lonely it's been. And I feel like this is I don't feel like they've had this moment. Like, I didn't get the sense that this had happened before. Like, he'd probably seen traumatic things.
Yeah.
But, like, to share it with her and for her to sit there with him, I felt like that was something new. And
for sure.
It's broken up by Barry.
There he is.
There it is.
Barry comes in and he needs him not to open up chips. Open up his crisps.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
Which I would argue, if your security guy can't open a small bag of crisps, we're in trouble.
It's not that he can't open it; it's that he doesn't want to.
He doesn't want to. So great.
I mean, he's a big guy; he's probably capable. But listen, if you got a guy there that's going to open up bags of crisps for you,
that's right. And then who shows up? Surprise, surprise!
April, May, June shows up.
June, but not June Diane Raphael.
No,
June shows up. Bob goes to get cleaned up.
Which he gets cleaned up very quickly.
So quickly.
Well,
I mean, you break down that blood with industrial cleaner, it's going to wipe off pretty quickly.
I mean, I guess he has to have super speed, right? If he can fly.
He's faster than a speeding bullet. He says it in the thing.
Oh, okay. So yeah, okay, never mind. I take it all back.
He probably just used the mirror, lasered it off, bounced the laser off the mirror, cut the blood off his face.
That's how he shaves. That's how he got those sideburns so
precise.
Yeah.
He comes down, he looks great, and Doris leaves pretty awkwardly. She's like clearly a little bit upset that June has shown up.
Well, I don't know if it's as upset. Like, yeah, she's definitely like, because they had a moment, and I think you probably want to explore the moment a little bit. But like when June comes in, she comes in hot. Like she comes in and kisses him, like right on the mouth.
Oh, that's right.
So I think that kind of makes her a little bit more upset, and she's like, okay, now I'm out of here. Like I don't want to see this.
And she hits her face on the door as she leaves, which is something that happens to all of us all the time. And he goes to check on her. Like, well, he's talking to June. He's like, "Oh, you look great. You look very green." And then he's like, "Can you wait 1 second?" And he goes to the door. He opens it. He looks out, and he kind of like rests against the door. And I was like, is he like hoping that Doris is outside there, like waiting for him? What was happening here? Or is he like so nervous about June that he just wanted like a breath of fresh air or a moment? I got the sense that he was hoping Doris was there.
Yeah, I don't know what he was doing.
Like unconscious on the stoop because she hit her head so hard. I didn't know what was going on.
I agree. It was kind of odd. Like the only thing I could think of is like maybe he wanted like one more little pep talk or one more little thing from Doris to say like, "Hey, how do I approach this situation?" Because he clearly is nervous. Like it cuts back to him and like he doesn't necessarily know what to say, and he's like, "Let's do this. Let's do a date." Like he's very awkward around her. So
sure.
But it was a weird sequence. I agree.
So then this is the dinner date, and he had told her that he was going to cook for her and he was going to do all this.
Yeah.
Which he's done no prep work. So
Again, super speed, man.
I'm very interested in. Oh, does he heat it with his eyeballs?
Sure, why not?
Okay.
Ingredients don't have to worry about like time with him.
Sure. He gives June the House of Leaves, which is hilarious.
The way he does it too, the presenting it, he just has like a cardboard box, like a filing cabinet box or whatever,
Right.
over it. It's like, oh, what's that smell?
Right.
Slowly pulls it off. Still has no idea what it is, and
We
he
find-
slowly starts to get her to it, and literally just has to say it out loud.
And she is being fake gracious, we'll say that.
Yes.
We don't initially think
Facious.
Yeah.
She's being facious.
Facious, there you go. We find out that her favorite book is not The House of Leaves, Tom, but it's what?
It's a house of cards.
House of Cards, and his response is, that would have been so much easier. Which I would argue that a House of Cards is pretty tough to build.
It's a fun thing, but I mean, if he glued the House of Leaves, he could probably glue some House of Cards together.
Okay.
And make it happen.
I'm assuming House of Cards is what the TV show House of Cards is based on, which is like a British political thriller.
It was, yes. And came to America under Kevin Spacey.
Then we get into probably the best conversation of any date ever, which is so weird. She's like, oh, you ate a lot. You're going to be bloated. And they start to talk about gas. Flatulence. Are you okay with me winding you like a baby? Oh, did you get that June is supposed to be American? Did you get that she didn't have a British accent during this, or did you assume she was British?
I don't think I did. On my first watch, I did not. Like,
so
until...
I was like, oh, they're all British. I didn't.
Yeah.
But then, like, later on, we discover she's American, which on the second watch, I was like, oh, yeah, she's not even
Clearly,
attempting.
yeah.
But the actress herself is British.
Oh, is
So,
she? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So,
I'll forgive myself a little bit then.
yeah. But I was like, what is happening in this moment? Why are they talking about gas?
Like-
Why are they talking about winding each other like a baby? Like,
I've even heard that term. I don't even know what winding means.
no, I assume that's a British term.
British term for pushing a baby's stomach so they fart.
Yeah, well,
Apparently.
like patting a baby on the back so that it releases
Like a burping.
gas. like,
Okay,
when the
all right.
baby's
So it's
crying.
burping and baby crying.
Yeah, exactly.
But like, I feel like what they were trying to do is just say, like, okay, these people aren't meant for each other. They're having weird, awkward conversations. Like, Bob doesn't know what to say, kind of a thing. But I don't know. I think you have a theory.
I have a theory, Tom. I'm going to go into that theory. So what is SuperBob, Bob Kenner, really concerned with throughout the show? He brings it up. She tells him
His
not
gas.
to talk about
His
it.
gas company.
His gas company.
Yeah.
So I think because we find out that June has been briefed by Teresa on Bob.
Mm-hmm.
She's been like essentially not forced into this relationship, but the government is like, hey, we need you to be in a relationship with this guy.
Mm-hmm.
It's good for photos. Then he's not with the Colombian. All these things. And I think during that briefing, they were like, hey, he's real concerned with gas. Gas is a talking point.
Oh, I like it.
And I think June, not maybe being the brightest bulb in the Home Depot aisle, is like, okay, I got to talk with this guy about gas.
Yeah.
I remember in the briefing, gas. He's really into gas. So I'm going to talk to him about winding him like a baby.
I like it.
So I think this is her misunderstanding her briefing and just bringing up gas in whatever way she can.
I think that's a brilliant tie-in. Very well done, my friend.
All right. So we also catch the back end of her telling a story about like getting over on a blind guy. She's like, oh, we made this huge mess, but he couldn't see it. I was like, wait. And he's clearly reacting like, oh, that's great of you.
Giggling, but
I
yeah,
guess.
just
Yeah.
awkward. Yeah.
So in the end, we don't know whether or not June's a good person or not.
And he
But-
jumps into like the bit about the cleaner, and he's so apparently still thinking about Doris.
And
like-
the only thing he knows about Doris is she uses cleaners. He's like, what kind of cleaner would you use to clean that up?
It's like a powder, a spray,
Such a
a
strange...
mousse. I think it's just odd.
But later, we will find out that he does not know as much about Doris as he should.
Yeah.
For someone that's known her for 6 years and
Yep.
is apparently in love with her. We find out the biggest tragedy of this whole film.
Yes.
Bob cannot get drunk.
I mean, I don't know. Like, well, I guess half the fun is
Biggest
drinking.
tragedy of the whole film is because of his veins being impervious, he cannot get drunk.
I guess that's true. We don't necessarily drink the alcohol for the delicious taste. I don't know. Maybe you do.
I find that it has both benefits.
Okay.
But I'll say this. This is where he opens the folder and finds out that Doris figured out that he's with British Gas, reads the note, and realizes that he wants to be with Doris. And this is where he like tries to shut the date down. And I thought this was very interesting. Like, and it shows what kind of like heart Bob has. Is like, rather than going along with it, super attractive woman in his house, clearly into him. He's just like, I don't want to do this to you. It's unfair.
Yeah.
I like someone else. I don't want to waste your time. And I don't know. I thought it was a nice like
I agree.
character moment for
I agree.
Bob.
June could care less. She was like, doesn't even like, she's literally saying that, and June is like saying the opposite of everything she's saying. And we like, why is she doing this? And we soon learn why.
But I still think she's into him. I don't think she's like forced into him. Did you get the impression that she's only doing it because of Teresa?
I feel like it's a little bit of both. I feel like she's being pushed by Teresa, but she's also like a super fan girl of SuperBob, kind of a thing. Like
That's
obsessed, borderline obsessed.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I don't want to take advantage of I want to take advantage of Doris. I want to be with Doris. Once again, I didn't deliver that line right, but the way he
I don't want to take advantage of you. I want to take advantage of Doris.
Thank you, Tom, for cleaning that up for me. And then Teresa's guy shows up, and we get Bob into his sweet new uniform.
Wish he had this in the beginning. So great.
Weapons Summit, 9 p.m. All my thought was, pretty late for a Weapons Summit, 9 p.m.
Well, I don't know, man. I mean, it's like,
this
what,
isn't
American...
a weapons deal. We're not buying and selling weapons, Tom. That happens at 9 p.m.
It's weapons cocktail hour.
All right, that's fine. They take him from the date, and Bob discovers that Teresa has set him up with June.
Yeah, for the greater good, which immediately reminded me of Hot Fuzz.
The greater good. The greater good. He is then taken... I mean, he's in this crazy outfit. He's taken... through this office, and he's meeting all these country leaders, and I was like, oh, this is the low budget film version of meeting all the... It's like a weird, like
introduces them, says what they do, whatever country they're from. It's like, oh, shake their hand. Until he gets to that one lady who's got like a hook for a hand. Oh no, don't shake hers. That was great.
That was great. And then he keeps like being to June. June keeps like trying to foster a relationship, and he's like, I really cannot be more clear with you. I'm not interested in you. I'm interested in Doris.
Yeah.
We find out that he's the only weapon anyone cares about, and this is the SuperBob Summit. And they
I like when it said SuperBob like on the background behind him. It has SuperBob like an asterisk. Like, it's like, I'm assuming there's like more detail to what it was, and I tried to look at like the fine print underneath because they had some.
Oh, really?
You couldn't read it. Yeah.
You didn't assume it was like a copyright sign that you weren't allowed to use SuperBob, much like the term Super Bowl. Don't sue a Super Bowl. They do that. So then they're trying to get the handshake and photo op.
Yep.
And they do the flag in the background. Someone puts that silly American flag on his head. And
I mean, it puts Jamie Tart's icon hat to shame.
Yeah. It was great. We find out this is their photo op with the American senator. He informs Bob that they sent Doris to Columbia, bought her a nursery, and this is where Bob gets mad and crushes the senator's
takes
hand.
off. Well, he crushes the senator's hand and then just takes off. Which he just like doesn't even go outside. He takes off.
Through the office.
Hopefully on the top floor of the office.
In the same way Sprinkles got thrown through the ceiling in the office, Bob goes through the ceiling of the office.
But I think at one point like the like American Senator says like, oh, go get him, and like the guys just run out like and they're on the roof and they're just taking pot shots to the sky,
shooting randomly into the air as you should as a security person.
To the impenetrable super guy.
And that bullet's definitely not going to fall from the sky.
Jeez.
Then I think this is the montage where like the news is like everyone's on the lookout for SuperBob, all the stock footage. He's at the airport.
We got camera footage of him.
Right, camera footage of him at the Colombian airport.
Was it the Columbia?
Yeah, I think he flew to Columbia for her to arrive because he thought she was already on the plane.
Okay.
And the airport person's like, "What's her last name?" And he's like, "I should know that." And that moment was so good. So good. And then he discovers that he knows where she's at, which is the home care place.
Yep.
So goes back, and this is then him rehearsing his speech, and he goes through all the things he's going to say to Doris.
Yeah, while he's looking in the mirror.
Right.
And I don't know if you had the same sentiment, but I assumed the end of this sequence was him going to spit in the mirror.
I didn't think of that at all. That's a great point.
Like, oh, he's gonna get this pep talk. He's gonna spit in the mirror, and this is gonna be a great call into Ted Lasso.
Oh man, Nate the Great, the biggest villain ever. This is then the declaration. He walks into the home care place. Doris is with his mom. SuperBob's mom. You came to see me? No, Mom, I haven't come to see you. I saw you already today. Such a great son response to a mom.
Like,
Just
as he's
incredible.
making eye contact with Doris, like, doesn't even really, like, he acknowledges his mom, like, briefly, but, like, it's such a great delivery.
Mom, I'm not here for you. And then we cut to all the news feed. They find out where he's landed. The police are surrounding, and the Peckham people are trying to help Bob. So they've created some sort of circle around
A Peckham shield.
a Peckham shield. Very nice. But he starts his conversation with Doris in a very loving way. Just comes in super gentle.
I got to tell you something.
No. What does he shout at her, Tom?
Oh, well, I think initially he comes in and says, like, I want to tell you something, but then, like, she keeps going on and on.
Sure.
And he just screams, "Shut up! I've come to be nice to you."
Tell you something. He tries to tell Doris how he feels, but Javier intervenes and explains that he's there to keep her from leaving to Colombia. And he, like, hits all the beats of Bob's speech.
He clearly heard it. Yeah, he heard
you
it.
think he heard it, or
Oh,
you
yeah.
think it's just coincidence?
No, I think he had to have heard it. Like, when he heard, like, that was the way Bob, like courted her. He's
Sure.
like, oh, this is what she loves. Like, I'm going to do the same thing.
Okay.
And eventually Bob's just like, oh, F off.
Javier's like, I love your face. Oh, F off. Which is so good. So Javier and Doris are in love. They go happily together forever.
And that's the end of the movie.
And that's the end of the movie. That was SuperBob.
But wait, there's more.
Bob says, I just wanted to say goodbye. Thank you for everything. And then their mouths get really close.
She gives kind of like the little, like, European kiss, like, on each side of the cheek.
Oh, sure.
And then they kind of are like nose to nose. And then they go in together.
Right. They kiss. And the musical artist Matthew P. plays in the background.
Who's Matthew P?
I looked him up.
Matthew
so
Perry?
apparently,
The Friends guy?
No, not Matthew Perry. Matthew P. He was a musical guy. He did some of the music for this, and I can't remember the name of the song, but it's the one that plays during the dance when the two of them are spinning around, and also this moment.
Same guy. Okay.
It is called End of the World. He scored some of the film. I looked him up, and his website is from like 8 years ago, so I don't know that he's still making music, but he was big in British indie music during this time.
Right on.
So I appreciate that Javier stands there the whole time while they're making out, and then he's like, okay, I think that's enough of a goodbye, and tries to separate him. You see the level of jealousy that Javier does not feel. He's perfectly okay with this. Up until, I don't know, 3 minutes of making out in front of him, that's where he draws the line. He separates them. Bob's like, hey, you should go to Colombia. You should work with kids. That's what you're like made for. I'll go with you. Javier interjecting her this whole thing is hilarious.
Oh, I love you so much. This is why you shouldn't leave. Like,
Right.
saying the exact opposite of
Right.
everything.
Well, and then he's like, oh, you know what? You should be with kids. And I'm also a citizen, so I should go with you. And Bob, the paperwork would be too difficult for you. Like, he I don't know. It was all great.
Mm-hmm.
Then Bob breaks his hand. And Bob does this great thing where he's like, I'm sorry. It's the second hand I've crushed today. It's so not my normal thing. Then they depart, and Bob gets shot like 5 times as he walks out.
It does like the slow-mo, the music's
Right.
playing, like boom, they're gonna go off into the sunset. He opens the door and he's like, listen, boom, 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 and he just gets shot, and he gets just so upset. It's like, what are you doing? There are children around.
Right. You all are going to look very foolish. You've ruined this. I sleep in this.
Yeah.
His like plain white t-shirt. And then he resigns, and he's like, no more forms. I'm not doing this anymore.
Yep.
And I think this was a funny moment. The guy's like, hey, if you're going to be an independent contractor, you still have to do forms. There's
self-assessment
forms, which I didn't understand, but I thought was great. And Bob's like, call me. I'll help you out. Don't abuse it. Here's
Puts
my
the
number.
Gives on the screen.
Number. Yeah, and then the phone rings. I won't deliver pizzas. Because that's the first call he gets. And then they kiss and fly off, and it's great. And then we hit the epilogue. We're in Colombia. They ask him if he's happy. And I thought this was funny. Like, rather than it being like, which they're clearly happy. Like, things are going well. But he's like, she's a nightmare.
Like, when he first did that, I'm like, is he serious or whatever?
Yeah.
But then when she kind of comes over, then they kind of playfully kiss and stuff like that. I think it's like a little bit more of them telling us, like, he's now more confident in the relationship and everything else that's kind of going on. So that was really good. And then I think it cuts to some of the other characters. It goes like back and forth to June, and she's like still obsessing over him. Right. She has the house
together. We built the house together, metaphorical house.
Wait, does he live in there? No. What kind of questions? Who writes your questions? Then it goes like the scientists. They're trying to figure out, like they're studying the meteorite that apparently hit Bob. They're like, oh, did you figure out what it is? No, I've been 6 years in this thing. We found nothing. Might as well be a purple turd. Which I thought was fantastic. Yeah, and then we also see Teresa, who's apparently been relocated to Afghanistan. Who's, absolutely loving it. Great times. It's easy. It's a joy. It's a delight.
Right. Then the big bomb goes off, and she's like, they'll be fine.
And then I think then it kind of cuts to a handful of people that he kind of saved earlier, the same little like one-off or whatever interviews, and they're all like saying he's having a much better experience. So like, Bob's turning it around. And I like the movie ends, like the whole credit sequence is the choir, the gospel choir is singing.
Sure.
And I don't know if you noticed this, but Bob is 100% there. He's
really?
singing. Yeah, he's singing with the choir the whole time.
They brought him back.
And there's a handful of times where you can pick out like his audio that he just completely stands out. It's fantastic.
Yeah. I had a lot of fun with this movie. It was completely enjoyable. Like, didn't have to think too hard. Yeah. Just had fun.
Well, it's short and sweet, like a movie like this should be. I think this movie clocked in like 120 minutes or something like that. Or, 122 minutes, like a little under an hour and a half.
Sure.
So not even like a full movie, if you will. But,
it was free.
Yeah, it was free. A couple commercials here or there. But yeah, I mean, again, it was just fun-loving. Certainly a passion project or something for these guys. Like they just did this little short film, and now being able to do a full thing. I love the way it kind of poked fun at some of the genres. Like, there's just so much superhero crap out there. Just an absolutely great time, and I couldn't recommend it enough. It's worth the time.
It was definitely worth it, and that was what I was going to ask you. I mean, would you recommend this to people? Would you say, hey, you're relaxing on a Thursday? Would you throw this on?
Yeah, absolutely.
My response would be yes, and I think it's even more fun since you've seen Brett Goldstein as Roy Kent.
Yeah.
Like, play something like kind of charming and awkward. And
I think if you listen to this podcast and have watched Ted Lasso, I think this is definitely going to be up folks' alley. So give it a show.
Right. My favorite part of the whole thing was definitely the speech at Gladys and Ted's. Like, just the awkwardness of that, the stuff he says, and having to like retreat from the words that came out of his mouth. I thought was great. Did you have a favorite moment?
Yeah, I feel like my favorite moment, or like at least the moment that I like laughed out loud, was him calling her a lady of the night and saying like, not all women are, but you are. And then his immediate backtrack. It was just
I thought there
great
would be
writing.
More words. I didn't have a lot. I mean, I don't know. You take a film like this and you don't want to like dissect it so much. Like, there's certain things that I would take out or I would do without. Obviously, the like senator, the American senator, was a really strange, like, over the top choice, but I understand why they did it.
It's just satire. Yeah, they're just poking fun.
Right. My favorite joke was, I think I laughed the hardest when they've got the video clip of him in the airport and they're like, "Oh, what's her last name?" And he's like, "Oh, that's something I should know." I don't know. It just hit me in a way that I laughed very hard.
I did appreciate the whole SuperBob summit too. Like, that was a fun sequence, and all like the lines back and forth, and like the obliviousness of June throughout the whole thing. And Bob's like, "What is going on? Why are you not understanding?"
Right. Now that Brett Goldstein's got some more power in whatever the British equivalent of Hollywood is, if he had the ability to do a sequel to this, would you watch a sequel of SuperBob?
Oh, I would 100% watch it.
SuperBob from Colombia.
SuperBob, what would be the tagline? SuperBob 2?
SuperBob, South America needs your help. Man, I hope Colombia's in South America, otherwise I'm gonna look like an ass.
No, I feel like this is something that like he would do and probably want to do. Like, especially if this is like a childhood friend, and like now that he is like notoriety, like they could probably very easily go film this, probably even get more money to back it, to do more special effects. Not that I think a movie like this needs it. It's more fun if it's like that. But yeah, I think this would be fun, and I would not be surprised if we see a SuperBob 2.
Yeah, I actually think you get into more trouble in terms of like believability and like taking you out of the movie if you make it a more like special effects driven.
Mm-hmm.
Like the stuff we see is him shooting off into the air, him landing. Otherwise, he's just standing heroically, and then it's the small stuff.
Yeah,
so
I think there's probably some green screen work or whatever, like
Right.
when they're at like the crash sites and all the other stuff. So like very minimal, but that's what I think. Like that's the perfect use of CGI is when it's minimal and it doesn't take you out of sequences.
Sure. I did some research on this, and I saw this quote from the director who, as I mentioned, was friends with Brett Goldstein from like the age of 15, and they decided to create this together.
Mm-hmm.
And his quote was, "I hope that SuperBob is to you what it is to me, a gentle, upbeat, positive, and funny romantic story about a man who learns to fight for what's important. Oh, and go visit Peckham. It's really not that stabby." Which I thought was a great line.
No, it's a great line. It's it's a great way to wrap up.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Yeah, please watch it. Let us know what you think.
Did the rest of the world enjoy it, Tom?
Yeah, so this was an interesting. So we talked about in the last movie, the kicking and screaming. What would be your thoughts on Rotten Tomatoes for this guy?
I would say that it probably, I don't know, I think middle of the road. I just don't know how many eyes got on it.
Yeah.
would be my thing.
Again, yeah, probably wasn't a big American audience, but overall it was received well. 86% for critic score, and then surprisingly, the audience score was 55%.
So the critics liked it more than just normal
Which
audience
I think
people.
is understandable. I think because, like, dependent upon, and I don't know how their algorithms and stuff work through Rotten Tomatoes, but this movie is probably not for everybody because it is a British comedy.
Right.
And it's a different kind of comedy than I think we're used to in America. So maybe some of the folks kind of filling that out don't necessarily. But I get that it's 86% in terms of the critics rating because I think it was a very well-told romantic story that kind of dealt with some of the genre stuff within superheroes and was a good time. So not surprising scores from me, but again, this is just critic scores and audience scores.
45% of people didn't really like the thought of a grown man being winded like a baby. But no, I enjoyed it. I'm glad we watched it. The next time you and I are going to get together, we are going to be discussing the major blockbuster that we both know and love.
Yes, so excited about this upcoming movie.
Colossal, the 2016 Anne Hathaway and Jason Sudeikis movie.
Oh man, just all the great actors.
I'm speechless.
A lot of people you haven't seen before.
I'm speechless about the thing we just said.
Oh man.
Right there.
Get excited, everybody.
So excited. And with that, we appreciate you guys joining us and sticking with us while we're waiting on season 3 of Ted Lasso.
For sure. Yeah, keep suggestions coming. If you have anything you want us to kind of watch or check out, if you have any feedback for us, reach us at teambingepodcast@gmail.com, or you can always find us on the social medias at Team Binge. And we're also looking to get some merch out to you guys. We know we've got a lot of requests. People want some of that sweet Team Binge merch. So we're working on some shirts, some mugs, some sweaters, some fine art for your home. I don't know what you want to do with it, but we're working on that, as well as the kind of website so you can kind of track us and kind of follow us what we're doing. So keep an eye out for that.
Wonderful job, Tom.
Did you want to add something?
I don't.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week. I have been Julian.
And I will always be Tom. Adios, everybody.